The previous video on citing primary sources dealt with some of the most common examples, such as diaries, letters. This video will focus on parliamentary papers or other government documents, along with oral teachings, such as lectures or interviews. There may be a parliamentary paper, bill, or debate that is applicable to your topic. We won't cover every possible legal source, but these are a few common ones. We'll only focus on UK legal documents. Keep in mind that for legal documents, such as parliamentary papers, you will only cite it in the footnote. You generally will not include it in the bibliography, unless you're instructed otherwise. So for a parliamentary debate, for instance, some of the information you'll need includes the volume number, the abbreviation for parliamentary debate, so parl, full stop, deb, full stop, the abbreviation for House of Commons or House of Lords, the series in round brackets, the years in parliamentary session in round brackets, and the column numbers. Don't panic if this is all sounding gibberish. We'll go through an example. So to my right, we have a screenshot from the parliamentary papers of a particular debate that I want to cite. So we can look for some examples to show what to include in the citation. So if you see volume title, you'll see volume 16. So we're going to put 16 at the beginning. And then you'll want to include the abbreviation for parliamentary debate, so PARL full stop DEB full stop. And then we can see this is from the House of Lords sessional papers, so we will include the abbreviation for House of Lords, HL. You can see under volume title that this is the 5th series, so we'll include 5th in round brackets. We can also see under Parliament 1914, so we will include that year in round brackets. And then for column numbers, we have COL full stop as the abbreviation for column, and then we can see page column 458 to 458. So we're just going to include 458 in as the column number. So now let's move on to a parliamentary bill. And again, we will use an example from parliamentary papers. So first, we will want to include Parliament, and then we'll include House of Commons or House of Lords as applicable. So in this example, you can see that it's from House of Commons. We'll want to include the title of the bill in italics, and so you've got the title up here. If possible, you want to include the shortened title because some of the bill titles can get quite long. And under paper number, we see 35, and so we'll include that for the bill number. In round brackets, you will put that it is in the House of Commons sessional papers, and you'll see parliamentary year was 1900. And because we access this through Parliamentary Papers, which is a ProQuest database, we will include ProQuest. Now let's pretend you want to cite an act of Parliament. So I'm going to use the National Health Service Act of 1946 as an example. So we will want to include the title of the act, so National Health Service Act, the year, 1946, and this is important. For acts of Parliament, if it was before 1963, you will want to include the regnal number. So you may have to do a little bit of digging sometimes, but in this case, that's easy enough. If we looked at the Act, we can see GEO full stop 6. So we can see that this is an abbreviation for King George VI, and then it has 9 and 10. So this Act covers the 9th and 10th years that King George was on the throne. So we will include 9 and 10, GEO full stop 6. And the regular numeral is fine, not the Roman numeral. And then you'll include this chapter number or section number if applicable. We have a chapter number 81, no section number, so we'll exclude that. If it's unclear which country or jurisdiction it's from, you'll want to have the abbreviated country in round brackets, but here it's very clearly United Kingdom, so we can leave that out. The date that you accessed it, and then the URL, which in this case comes from the governmental website. This can be quite overwhelming at times, so if you're ever stuck, always remember to contact your academic liaison librarian for assistance. We'll now move from the government to a lecture. Please keep in mind that generally speaking, your module lectures are not going to be sufficient for a primary source, unless there happens to be a guest speaker who's giving an account of a firsthand event that they witnessed. Module lectures might be okay for a secondary source with the permission of your lecturer, but in this case, for primary sources, module lectures will not be suitable. But it is possible that you might witness a lecture of someone who, for example, was involved in anti-war protests from the 60s or 70s, or was part of the US Civil Rights Movement, something along those lines. So if that's the case, there are different ways you can cite those particular lectures or speeches. I'm just going to include the raw template up here. You will usually include the author, in quote marks, the title of the lecture. In round brackets, you'll include the lecture, the name of the event, the location, and the date. So, for example, if this was held at a conference or rally or some other event, you'll want to make sure that that's included in there. Also, if you're doing a recorded lecture, then you'll just include the recorded lecture for the format, and then make sure you include the URL at the end of the citation. And finally, we're going to go on to oral histories, which can include interviews. Some interviews are broadcast, and if the interviewee is an eyewitness to an event, that can be quite useful. Additionally, if you have the unique opportunity to interview someone from a particular time period that you're studying, it's important to know how to cite that. So if your interview was published, perhaps it was someone who was interviewed on a news broadcast, you'll generally treat it like an article. For instance, you will put the name of the interviewee, then you'll put the title of the segment, if applicable, in quote marks. So if it was part of BBC One or Good Morning Britain, you can put that in there. Interviewed by, and then you can put the interviewer name. The name of the broadcast, if applicable, and the date that it aired, and the URL. Now, if the interview was unpublished, then you will need to have the name of the interviewee, and you will often include a brief description, such as policy advisor or activist, or something to clarify why this interviewee is essential. And in quote marks, you'll put the title of the interview, if applicable, interview by. If you have the rare opportunity to do an interview yourself, you could put something like in discussion with the author, and then the place and the date of the interview, and if known, the location of either the transcript or recording. So for instance, if you came across the interview in a local archive, make sure you indicate where in the archive it's located. So, this all might be a little overwhelming at first, but hopefully these tips will give you a little overview on how to cite various primary sources. But if you still need help, you can always Contact your academic liaison librarian at the relevant course resource help page for your subject. To learn more about Chicago referencing, watch the other videos in this series.